I want your calls on this now, though. Is it time to panic about climate change? 0207862 2222. That is the number, and I want to hear from you. Scientists have warned that record-breaking extreme weather is the new normal in the UK, which they say proves that the country is in a climate crisis. The last decade has seen the 10 warmest years on record globally, with the last 3 years being in the UK's top 5 hottest years on record. Energy Secretary Ed Miliband has said the British way of life is under threat due to climate change. Speaking in the Commons yesterday, he urged the government to act on the climate crisis to protect Britain.
The safety of our citizens, our natural world, the country we pass on, is not a Labour cause or a Conservative cause or that of any other party. It is a British cause. It is a cause of us all, and a cause that requires all of us to consider our responsibilities to the generations of today and the generations to come.
So, Nelufar, are you worried? Are you panicking? Have we got past that point?
Yes, we've gone past the point of panic. I want to start off by just saying the climate crisis doesn't care about your feelings or mine or anyone else's. It doesn't care about this debate. It doesn't care about what happens after we leave this room. The climate crisis is not going to mean that the planet is uninhabitable. It means we're going to find it hard to inhabit this planet. I can riff off thousands of statistics that prove what I'm saying, but it doesn't mean anything unless the audience makes a connection to this story, to this point. We're not talking about the British way of life being under threat. We're talking about all life being under threat. And when we are put in these extreme scenarios, some saying, the Weather Journal, a scientific journal, saying that there's a 50-50 chance that by 2040, we're going to have temperatures of 40 to 45 degrees Celsius, and we'll be begging for the heat waves that we're experiencing today. It goes on and on. Typhoons in the UK, flooding, 6.3 million houses being in floodplains soon enough. It goes on. Who cares about all that? What I'm trying to say is the disconnect we have between the climate crisis and how we feel about it. There's one way of putting it that I think might grab your attention. The hidden costs, insurance, rebuilding things, the missed opportunities for people when they've had entire ecosystems or entire land being got rid of. Rather than building a new house, we're repairing old ones lost due to the climate crisis. The cleanup, all of these things are going to cost us a fortune.
I mean, you say, what is it going to take us for us to care about it, this disconnect? I mean, let's have a look at the issues that matter to people in the UK. We've got a graph here. This is from YouGov. If you look at the top there, on 51%, we've got the economy and immigration. So people are putting those absolutely at the top of the things that matter to them. Then health, then crime, and then down at 18% currently is the environment. And you can see over the last 5 years, there have been times when it's got up to 30%, and that's about as far as it gets. Right now, it's not something that's going to win votes. It's not something that's going to win elections.
Can I just tell you one thing? This is in the United States, but very, very similar things are happening in the UK. According to a Bloomberg intelligence report, in the last 12 years, the impact of the climate crisis, the damage it's done, has come to about $7 trillion. That's 2 times as bad as the Great Depression. I'll repeat, we are already sustaining massive economic and immigration issues because of the environment. This graph, although beautiful, is hiding the truth. The truth is, many of the inconsistencies, when the Himalayas melts, 2 billion people will be displaced by 2050. Where will they go?
OK, so Rick, immigration, there we go. Nelufar's saying immigration directly is influenced by environment. As people seek habitable environments, they have to move to find those. So we can't look at immigration without looking at environment. And you could say the same for the economy, for health as well, contagious diseases. If the temperature keeps rising, will rise with that as well. Crime. All of these seem to be dependent upon the environment.
If you can't afford to feed your kids, you're not going to worry about putting your recycling in the right box. You know, that's what this comes down to. There are so many priorities for people at the moment. And over the last 5 years, the cost of living crisis has just driven people to such extremes that they've been pushed into corners, and the rising burden of taxes on people and the squeezed middle classes has just led people to look at different areas that they're concerned about. And quite frankly, the economy is the number one concern for most people. And spending enormous amounts of money on the climate means nothing if we are out on our own, Matt.
But are we not putting the cart before the horse by doing exactly that? The big story here, the baseline, if you like, to everything else that's going on is the environment and the increasing pressures it's placing not just on this country, but on the rest of the world.
Yeah, but that's the point exactly. So the UK is responsible for less than 1% of global emissions. The rest of the world has changed dramatically in the past few years because of the cost of living crisis. You've seen what's gone on in the United States, where climate issues have gone down the list as well. We've seen Japan, we've seen places like China and India, where what is going on there is emissions are still rising.
Right.
We cannot do this on our own.
But leadership, I mean, that's what we've been good at in the past, is showing the way for the rest of the world. On so many issues, we've demonstrated that we can lead the way, be out there by ourselves, and the rest of the world can follow by our example. Why shouldn't we be that country?
Well, because at some point you have to put priorities first, you have to make sure that people are able to get by, that the economy works, that people are allowed to work in a country that is in a big amount of trouble at the moment. And climate issues, spending £7 billion a year on climate issues is not going to work. One of the biggest issues we've got here is that how we spend this money. We have virtue signalled our way across climate issues for the last 5 years. Local councils have created their initiative to go net zero, so carbon zero by 2030, when the government's own plans are 2050. We've created climate offices on £160,000 a year, multiple of them across councils across Britain, people being paid hundreds of thousands to tell people not to build there. Don't do your loft because it might have some bats in it. We've gone
This is
wild
also
on
money
this
that's
issue.
going. This is also money that's going on flood defences as well, Rick, and trying to provide people with decent water, with enough water as well. Those are the kind of preparations we're having to make. I just want to bring in another graph here. Ed Miliband issued his warning after the Met Office report found that the UK had twice as many extremely hot days than it did at the end of the 20th century. Let's have a look right here. These days a year in which the highest maximum temperature in each county exceeded 28 degrees. There we go, 1930 to 1960, the average, as you can see, most of the country there, about between that 4 and 8 days of the year. 61 to 90, if anything, it looks like it's got cooler. 91 to 2020, things have really heated up, particularly in the southeast. And there, 2015 to 2024, we can see actually that down in the southeast, we're getting to 16 days of the year in that part of the world where it regularly exceeds 28.
Yeah,
this is not an illusion, Rick.
No,
this is science.
Completely, and I'm all for making sure that we do the best we possibly can. I've got solar panels on my roof. I've got solar water heater, I've got batteries. I think people should be using these market-led solutions. But when there's no money in the pot, Matt, we can't not feed people. We can't cut back on all our welfare payments
it makes sense for you
just for the environment.
So just a couple of really important points, okay? There's so much I could say, but let's stick with one thing. There's a term we have to become familiar with, and it's compound effect. So, for example, during the pandemic, we knew that one person having COVID could spread it to 7, can spread it to 100, could spread it to 1 million, very, very quickly. And there's this tipping point between half the population not having the disease or the effects and half having it. This is what the climate crisis will be like. You won't notice it. You won't notice it because they're tiny numbers, but there'll come a moment in time when that compounding effect will be so vast that you'll be like, well, I didn't see this coming. And that's what Rick will say. He'll be like, well, we didn't see this coming, but we did. We have. Scientists have been warning about this. Journalists, environmental journalists like me have made documentary after documentary about this, but we're not listening because we care about the economy.
So how much money would you spend on it?
All the money, all the money. This is not about me and you. This is about this is about your kids. This is about your kids' kids.
Do you scrap welfare payments?
Why would you go there? There's a billion other things that I would scrap before I scrap welfare payments.
tax?
And
I want to
find
take
these
some
pot
calls,
shots
guys.
helpful,
I wanna
to be
hear-
Who pays
honest.
for
I
it?
don't find these pot shots helpful.
Who pays for it?
Because what I'm trying to draw on is this, I haven't attacked you, I haven't asked you to answer pot shots, but it is important that you understand, putting this contextually, you can't see past your lifetime. I'm trying to get people to see past into much future generations.
Let's take some calls. Jeannie's in Norfolk. Jeannie, are you panicking about the climate crisis?
Yes, definitely. Yes, I think more people should. I actually live at the moment in the southeast, so it is very hot here. I'm also a member of Greenpeace and WWF. I agree totally with what Ed Miliband says. I wasn't quite familiar with him, but when I heard him, I thought, yes. I also believe that if there were more things on TV, advertisements, about these things, and it would let the normal sort of Joe in the street would be more aware of these things happening. I think it's really education, try and make it more sort of known. And also it's a bit hopeless when we've got him messing about with all the other idiots. So yes, I do worry a bit.
And this is the argument.
Also,
the argument, Jeannie, is that you are doing your bit there in Norfolk. Meanwhile, China and India are becoming more and more industrialised and using more and more fossil fuels. So what effect is it going to have, you doing your bit in Norfolk?
Well, I'm trying to do my bit in Norfolk. Well, it's actually Norwich, and I will bring it up a minute. I'm actually having an argument with Norwich City Council. I'm asking them to put 2 trees on a big piece of spare land that's the size of a tennis court, which is our communal gardens. I even offered to pay for 2 little trees, and they say downright no. And I think, well, this must be the only council in the country that says no to planting trees.
OK.
And I have to get that bit in because it's...
Sorry, Rick, what Jeannie's doing there is individually putting pressure on her council, on her local government to change the environment. And, we can throw our hands up in the air and say, look, I'm just going to look after myself here. Or if we individually put that pressure on, then Norfolk says, actually, this is what matters to people. We see that graph start to change and that number go up as people say, no, I do want my environment to be better.
That's great, isn't it? And people should be putting pressure on their council and planting more trees. That's all fantastic. The bit that I'm concerned about is spending hundreds of thousands of pounds, millions of pounds on unnecessary net zero targets that can't be done. That's great. I completely agree with what Jeannie's doing in Norfolk. That's fantastic.
Wrong, though.
Doing trees,
there are entire places, for example, in America, in Florida, there are entire places where tens of thousands of homes are uninsurable because of the climate crisis. There are coastlines in the UK that are losing so much land that it's encroaching on human habitation.
Is that when people start to sit up and take notice? When you get hosepipe bans, when your home is uninsurable because of flooding or because of heat, it's actually financial pressures which are going to make people change their behaviour.
The problem, and Jeannie, my God, what a classy lady. Well, thank you for pointing it out. The problem is we don't think it's our responsibility. It isn't. So when we say things like, oh, but China's putting more CO2 gases, because they're building our stuff. They make stuff to send to us in the developed world. That's where their emissions come from. Also in 2024, China has now got more energy from renewables than it does from coal fire. So China's changing its way.
Let's take another call. Tony's in the West Midlands. Tony, are you panicking about climate change, about the environment?
Not at all. No, not at all. It's natural. At the end of the day, we're a 4.5 billion year old planet has gone through multiple changes. Yeah, Britain didn't start where we are now, did it? We've moved and all the rest of it. We can't control everything. The things we can control is where we live. Yeah, what we divert, like rivers and everything, so we can live somewhere where we shouldn't be. Yeah, common sense wise. And it's just pathetic. It really is.
Why is it pathetic when you see temperatures change as rapidly as they have in the last few years, Tony? It's all very well to say that the planet's been around for millennia. We have never seen what we've seen here, and we can now draw the line directly to our use of fossil fuels.
No, you have. Really, honestly, Matt, you need to go back and look through time, because what you've got is half the scientists, the ones who are getting funded, are finding problems, which they're going to, which is fine.
The vast majority of
half the
scientists,
scientists.
the vast majority of scientists now agree, Tony, that
No, they
climate
don't.
change
No, they
is
don't.
real, and it's as a result of the way we use fossil fuels.
Climate change is real. Of course it is, because it's an ever-evolving planet. But you talk about CO2. OK, let's cut the CO2, Do you know what the margins are? If you cut it too much, that will start dying from that. Trees will die. You know that. You must do.
I don't know that, Tony.
Well, there you go. There's something you've learned.
Maybe I've swallowed the climate crisis pill, but the reality is, from what I've known, overwhelming scientific evidence says that the way that we need to stop this is by cutting our emissions. You don't believe that?
You know CO2.
Would you call yourself a climate denier?
No, because I know that it's like the weather. It changes all the time. No, listen. CO2, trees need CO2. Trees need it, yeah? The planet is actually, we've got, I think it's 15% more coverage of trees since 1980, yeah?
OK. I'm going to have to take your word for that, Tony. I don't know where you've got that from. I'm going to have to take your word for that. I can't disprove it or prove it in the time we've got. And sadly, that is all the time we've got for that debate. Thank you for your call, Tony, and for all your calls. Don't forget.